Hello friends, every autumn millions of pounds go unclaimed simply because people assume they don't qualify or assume the payment will arrive automatically when it won't. Winter is approaching and the rules around this payment have changed more than once in the last 2 years, which means even people who received it last winter cannot assume this winter works the same way. Today, I am walking through exactly who qualifies, how much you'll receive, what could get clawed back, and the specific steps to take if your payment doesn't show up when it should. Before we get into it, subscribe to this channel and turn on the bell. This payment has a hard deadline attached to it, and missing that deadline means losing the money entirely for the year. Subscribe now and let's get into it. Your birthday is the first gate and it moves every single year. To qualify for the winter fuel payment for winter 2026/27, you need to have been born on or before 28th June 1960. That date is not fixed. It shifts forward every year in line with the state pension age, which means someone who didn't qualify last winter might qualify this winter, and it's worth checking again even if you were told no before. Qualifying week. The specific week the government checks your circumstances against runs from 21st to 27th September 2026. You need to meet the age and residency requirements during that exact week, not before it and not after it. Living in England or Wales during that week is the second part of the residency test. Scotland runs its own version called the Pension Age Winter Heating Payment, and Northern Ireland has a separate scheme managed through its own executive, though the amounts and core rules mirror what applies in England and Wales. Automatic doesn't always mean automatic, and that's where people fall through the cracks. Most eligible people receive this payment without lifting a finger. If you were paid last winter and your circumstances haven't changed, HMRC and the DWP already have what they need, and a letter arrives in October or November confirming the amount. But 3 situations break that automatic chain completely. You've never received the winter fuel payment before, you've deferred your state pension since your last payment, or you receive personal independence payment as your only qualifying benefit, and no other record exists to trigger an automatic payment. If any of those apply to you, a manual claim is required, and nobody is going to chase you down to remind you. £200 or £300. The amount depends entirely on age, not on need. Households where the oldest person is between 66 and 79 receive £200. Households where the oldest person is 80 or over receive £300. This is a flat age-based amount, not means-tested in the way pension credit is, which is exactly why the income threshold below catches so many people by surprise. Couples living together where both partners qualify will typically have the payment split or paid to one partner on behalf of the household, depending on how your benefits are currently assessed. If you live alone or nobody else in your household qualifies, you receive the full amount in your own name. Here's the part that trips up higher earners specifically. Anyone with an annual taxable income above £35,000 will still receive the full payment initially, but HMRC claws it back afterward. For most people, this happens automatically through a change to your tax code the following year. If you file a self-assessment return, it gets recovered through that return instead. Nothing needs to be registered, requested, or applied for to trigger this clawback. It happens in the background based on your taxable income for the year, which means the safest move is simply to expect it if you know your income sits above that line, rather than being caught off guard by a tax code change you don't recognize. Opting out entirely is also an option, and it's worth considering if you know for certain your income exceeds the threshold and you'd rather avoid the tax code adjustment altogether. Call the Winter Fuel Payment Centre directly to arrange this, and remember that if you share a payment with a partner, both of you must agree to opt out together. One partner cannot opt out while the other keeps receiving it. Care homes, hospital stays, and time abroad each carry their own separate rule. Continuous residence in a care home changes your eligibility if you are also receiving pension credit, universal credit, or income-related ESA during that stay, so this is not a blanket exclusion. It depends on which benefits were in payment at the time. Time spent in hospital or in prison during the entirety of qualifying week can also affect your claim, with slightly different rules depending on how long that stay lasted and whether it extended through the full qualifying period. Moving abroad permanently ends new eligibility going forward, though a small number of people already receiving the payment before moving to certain EU or EEA countries were grandfathered in under older rules. No new claims can be started from overseas under the current system. The deadline is the one detail that ends more claims than any eligibility rule. Claims for winter 2025/26 must be submitted before 31st March 2026, and this deadline typically repeats each year on the same basis, roughly 6 months after qualifying week closes. Missing it usually means losing that year's payment entirely, with exceptions only made for administrative errors on HMRC's part or delays caused by a benefit change outside your control. Claiming itself takes 3 possible routes: online through the claim portal that typically opens around September, by phone through the Winter Fuel Payment Centre, or by post using the claim form available on gov.uk. Whichever method you choose, have your national insurance number and bank details ready before you start. Scam awareness matters here as much as the claim itself. The government will never ask you to click a link or share personal details to receive this payment, and any text or call demanding that information is not a genuine contact from HMRC or the DWP. So here is the complete picture of who qualifies and what to do. Check your birth date against 28th June 1960, since the qualifying age shifts every year and you may qualify now even if you didn't before. Confirm whether you fall into one of the 3 groups needing a manual claim, no previous payment, a recent state pension deferral, or PIP as your only qualifying benefit, because none of those trigger an automatic payment. Expect a clawback through your tax code or self-assessment if your income sits above £35,000, and consider opting out directly if you'd rather avoid that adjustment. Understand how care home stays, hospital admissions, and time abroad affect your specific circumstances, since none of these apply as a single blanket rule, and treat 31st March as a hard deadline because a late claim is very rarely accepted once that date passes. If you haven't received a letter by January and believe you're eligible, call the Winter Fuel Payment Centre on 0800 731 0160 and ask directly where your claim stands. Share this with someone whose birthday falls before June 1960. One phone call before that deadline could be worth several £100s. I will see you in the next one.